Hi, I'm Mark Walker, and we're here at Money 2020 Europe in Amsterdam. I'm going to start off by asking my interviewee to introduce himself to you, the audience.
Hi, my name is Clive Bourke from Daon. I've been working in the field of biometrics and identity for almost 25 years, and we're here at Money 20 exhibiting our latest technology.
Fantastic. So that latest technology, give us a little bit more flavor of what that actually is, because obviously identity verification has come quite a long way over the last few years. What's unique about the way that you're now delivering it?
Well, the way we look at it, we're using AI to fight AI within the identity verification process. So we're all familiar with the threats from deepfakes. There's a lot being talked about at this conference and elsewhere about that, and in your publications as well, and the potential for fraud, and some of that fraud has happened. So fraudsters are using AI to attack service providers, banks, financial services, payments companies, but we're building AI that fights that fraud, and we're being successful. So we can detect deepfakes in contact centers, deepfakes in the online registration of new customers, in the trust elevation of existing customers. And what we do is we look and make sure that it's really a genuine person at the end of that digital interaction. And then we try and make sure that the person's properly screened, that they're properly trusted, that the device are properly trusted, and then they can interact in a frictionless way. So that's what we do, Mark.
Okay, and I guess what we're kind of talking about here is that we're seeing a lot more fintechs and banks adopting some verification of real life. So make sure that it's not just a scanned picture of somebody, it's not just a picture of a passport. We want actual proof that it's a real human being. But because of the advanced nature of AI, as you said, with deep fakes, people will be able to almost create replicas of other people that can move in a human way, can talk in a human way. And so that's what we're talking about here, isn't it?
That's exactly what we're talking about. And it's almost never been more important to have those proper defenses against AI threats, because the previous fraud would have been masks, would have been injection attacks, would have been conventional fraud, photographs, videos, and so on. But now it's much easier for someone to try and pretend to be Mark, right? So what we have to do is make sure that even if someone has the best AI representation of Mark, that that fraudster can't play that into the system. We won't even allow it in. And if it did get in, we'd be able to detect that it wasn't a real video of you, basically. We don't need to know it's you, we just need to know that that's not a real video, that's AI generated.
And it's obviously a really interesting balance, isn't it? Because we all, as consumers, want a nice, seamless user experience. We don't want to have to do handstands. We don't want to have to do cartwheels and get some blood out, put it into a thing and do that all manner of different ways of identifying myself. So how do you balance the simplicity with the deep sort of identity protection?
You see, that balance is really critical, but it's critical to get that balance right in what we call each different identity journey or journey type. So what we mean by identity journey is sometimes you're registering a new customer the first time, unknown person, unknown device, going from untrusted to be trusted. So there's a lot of scrutiny in that process. So you need to set thresholds and capabilities around your security tailored to that. Other times it's an existing customer returning, and you might treat them differently because you've got behavioral characteristics, device characteristics that you can recognize as well. Then other times you're doing a trust elevation where you're saying, now I'm allowing that person to do like a high risk transaction. High risk can be a high value transfer. For example, we have customers transferring over $150,000 inside an app and things like that. But simply it could also be registering a new device, which is the first vector for fraud. So what we do is we tailor the security thresholds around the identity journeys, but you do it in a low code way. So it's not an engineering project to do that. And then you can fine tune them to say, well, what level of friction and convenience is the right balance to get security right, but also get people through the process and have the conversion levels that you also want as well.
Yeah, so it's almost like an adaptive complication level, depending on what you're trying to actually achieve in the app or value that you want to transfer.
That's exactly adaptive and agility around what you're trying to achieve, depending on the situation and scenario and context.
Fantastic. So the other area I wanted to touch on was biometrics. We're hearing a lot about biometrics and new concepts and new ideas. What's the new sort of biometrics trends that you're most excited about?
Well, first of all, we've been doing biometrics for 25 years. So fingerprint, face, voice, iris, we're doing all of that. But the latest in biometrics, the battleground moved a couple of years ago to liveness detection. Can I detect deep fakes? So if someone's taking a picture with the camera, is that a real person? We talked a bit of that already. But in the contact center, when someone's calling in, how does the agent know that they're talking to a real person? Today, you can go online. There are over 100 tools you could buy online for a few dollars that could replicate Mark and then pretend to be Mark calling the contact center. So we've developed technology that can alert the agent to say, this is not a real person at the end of the line. And that's a battleground, and it's never finished. And then the other thing that's really interesting is we find that online age assurance is really topical right now. And so putting people through the friction of presenting their ID document doesn't make sense all the time. So we do an age estimation based on a selfie. And then depending on the age range that comes back, we might say, that person looks too close to 18, let's ask for more information. So that's really trending as well.
So again, sort of more customizable solutions. We're all talking about identity verification that's personalized to the journey.
To the journey and the type of thing that you're dealing with at that time. Yes, exactly.
And I guess the sort of final question is thinking about, as you alluded to right at the beginning, fraudsters are adapting tools in some instances quicker than we are and pushing these threats further forwards. How do you kind of keep up to date with that? How do you start thinking about what tomorrow's threats might look like, and how do you prepare now?
Well, what we do is we think like fraudsters and say, can we imagine what type of threats they could try to execute based on the capabilities of the technology that we know about today, or that's just coming down in the next 9 to 18 months. And then what we try to do is build defenses against that as well. And so we start to build those defenses proactively and roll them into our platform so that when threats start to emerge, we see them. But also, all security is layered. So there's never one silver bullet that stops everything. So we have layers of defenses. So we're always thinking about those layers, saying, how can we configure them? What else can we put in? What other threats can we envisage so that we can always protect someone? So, and then we also consult with ex-fraudsters as well to say, if you had the tools of today, what would you do? And a lot of them think, first of all, that they wouldn't get caught. But then you ask them why that is. And when they describe it, you say, well, actually, there's something we might already have thought of, right?
And obviously, you have a wide global reach that you offer these services. What do you see as different dynamics in, say, the European market to, say, the APAC market? And are the threats different in each region?
Well, the threats are not different. The fraud is fairly universal. You'll always have people creating mule accounts. You'll always have impersonation attacks. You'll always have account takeover and phishing, okay? Now, if someone tries to phish you, but you basically previously might have given away your PIN number, for example, now if you use your face biometrics or your voice biometrics to protect something, people can't phish your face and voice. They can't persuade you to loan that to them. And because the liveness detection or genuine person detection is there, it has to be the real person who's present during it, right? But still, there's other types of attacks as well. So what we see is that fraud is sort of universal, but what's changing across the globe is that the onset of, or the incoming wallets in the EU, in the UK, the government's announced its wallet and it's going to have driver's license by the end of the year. MDLs are rising in the US and coming from Australia as well. So that will change how identity verification is going to work in future. What it means is that now I can have a digital credential in a secure wallet, probably issued by my government, that I can then use when I'm going through that process of onboarding or trust elevation with my service provider. Previously, I had to take out a document. So there's going to be less friction in that. It's going to be more secure because it's a trustworthy source. And that means that we can probably ask people to volunteer to do that more often. So it means that you can have more user journeys where you can say, I might need to do the proofing again, or I might need to see the source of truth of your document again, and things like that.
But again, that's going to be quite different depending on the region and how fast that particular government will roll out that new databases, etc. Yeah, no.
That's exactly right. It'll be of the 27 member states, they all have an obligation to do it. Service providers and banks have an obligation to accept them. But when will they be truly ready? But they are coming. They're definitely coming.
And final question. We were just talking beforehand about Money 2020. 2017 was the first time we came to Europe for Money 2020. What's your take on the event as it stands at the moment?
This event has become the event to do every year. And that's not just me saying, it's my colleagues in the industry as well. So I've said, we always check every year. Does it make sense? Is this what we're going to do again next year? And we're thinking about that plan now. But really here we would meet strategic partners, we would meet customers, we'd meet some potential new customers, and also we'd meet some suppliers and other people who collaborate with us to create new solutions. So it's a really productive event for us. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for joining me here at Money 2020.
Thanks very much, Mark. Cheers.